Thank you, Mr Chair, and I'm happy to stand and take a call in response to some of the Minister's comments. And the Minister said in his first call that he really wanted to have a proper debate about this piece of legislation. Absolutely. And I say to the Minister that if he's genuine about that, then he should stop misrepresenting what Labor members have said and believe. He should stop misrepresenting the information that the Select Committee were given. If he is genuine about having a proper debate about ACC, then he needs to tone down the hyperbole and the rhetoric. So I say to this Minister, if the only way he can make his arguments is to misrepresent, to exaggerate, then he has to seriously question how strong his arguments are, because that is all I've heard from the Minister, and it's disappointing. It's very disappointing, because this is an issue, this is a piece of legislation which is immense in its impact on New Zealanders and on their families. And I find it incredibly offensive when David Bennett and when the Minister get to their feet and say that Labor likes criminals, and that Labor thinks that criminals should get a free ride, and that Labor thinks that criminals should have all their ACC paid for, when the Minister knows that that is not true. In fact, he read out the part of the Minority Report which said that we don't believe that Graham Burton should have received that funding, and that there is a problem, and that it's up to ACC to take action if they believe it. It's not up to the Minister, and the Minister knows this. He accused Marianne Street of not stopping that when he knows full well that she did not have the power to do it. Again, I say to the Honourable Nick Smith, if he has to misrepresent the law to that extent, then that throws into doubt his credibility and his arguments, because ACC now has the power to disentitle people. They do. And if there are reasons why they're not doing it, Minister, then find out what those reasons are. And one of the questions the Select Committee asked was, is it because, and ACC said, sometimes we don't know whether or not these people have been convicted. We don't know if they've been found guilty, and we assume innocent until proven guilty. And if there is a problem, and Labor members said, if there is a problem with information sharing, then address that, and we would support that. Then we would support that. But don't introduce, we're opposing, Minister, everything else in this draconian piece of legislation. But there is no need to go this far. And the Minister talks about Graham Burton. I want to take it back down to the other end of the scale and say to the Minister, what about people who face large fines and reparation? Because under the Minister's legislation, wealthy people who can pay that don't lose their entitlement. So they've done the same thing as a poor person who can't pay it, who's had to go to prison, but the wealthy person who paid their way out of that is not disentitled, and the poor person who's had to go to prison because they don't have the money to just pay the final reparation is disentitled. How is that fair, Minister? How is that fair that someone who can pay that is not disentitled and someone who can't pay it is for exactly the same offence? Because let's be clear, when we're talking about this, we're not only talking about the Graham Burtons of the world, and I think most people agree that was an appropriate action to have him disentitled for that. We're talking about someone who, driving home from work because they work 3 shifts, is really, really tired and shouldn't be driving, but they cause an accident that harms someone else, and they harm themselves in the process. Now that person would be disentitled, and their family would be disentitled. So someone who does a stupid manoeuvre on the road, overtakes unsafely, they would, Minister, they would. Under your law, they would. They're disentitled, they overtake unsafely, or they're speeding and they cause an accident. Now it's wrong and it's bad, and they shouldn't do it. But those are also the people we're talking about. We're not just... and see, this is what worries me, is what I'm saying is absolutely true, and the Minister is just shaking his head and saying it's not true. And what concerns me with the approach of this Minister, and he knows what he's talking about. This is not someone who's not intelligent. This is an intelligent Minister who knows that what I'm saying is right. No, he is intelligent. But, what was that? Sorry, Mr Woodhouse? Right, well, Mr Woodhouse decides that what I'm saying isn't appropriate enough or relevant enough for him to take seriously. He just says that David Parker and Marianne Street aren't intelligent. Well, thanks for the contribution to the debate, Mr Woodhouse. Stellar as usual. But what I'm trying to say is that this Minister knows what I'm saying is true. Under his legislation, they would be disentitled because it results in a sentence of 2 years or more. 2 years or more. So they would be disentitled. Their families would be disentitled. And we will point out the section to the Minister where this causes. So a worker who's driving home, they're really tired because they work 3 jobs, they shouldn't be driving because they're overtired, they cause an accident, they harm someone, they're disentitled.
Well, Michael Woodhouse.